Excuse me.
Okay, it's quite an impressive talk. People should continue to discuss about that. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Professor Sebastian Gajek, Professor for Cryptography at Frankfurt University, and also the co-founder of Weeve. And I'm going to talk today about what we're doing at Weeve. So, it was a long conference, a lot of talks. So, let me ask you something. So I think, or maybe I'm a bit frank. So who is here to understand how we can make money with blockchain? Who's interested in that? Yeah, I think that's like the fundamental question when people come up with a new paradigm like the blockchain. And we, and I'm also frank to you, we at Weeve, had also a similar question on our radar. And the answer we came up with was quite simple. So you can always make a lot of money when you manage to combine technologies or combine paradigms. Paradigms which are by themselves powerful, but if you put them together, you create something new. Normally it's like a new market. A very good example was like the smartphone. Back in the days we had like telephones. Back in the days we had like the internet. Back in the days we had software. This software was called like a web app. And if people put it in a smart way together, they created something new. A new economy for the appyverse. And something similar happens, if you, try to, take the advantages of two new, forthcoming paradigms. Blockchain on the one hand, but IoT on the other hand. And what's the importance when you put the two paradigms together? You create new markets, new market opportunities, new use cases. And why? Because we know from the Facebooks and Googles that data has value. Data is like one of the most interesting assets we have in the 21st century. It's a digital asset. Back in the days, people were about gold, about oil. They considered as a valuable asset. In the 21st century, in a digital society, data becomes the new oil. And we at Weeve were pondering, how can we make this new asset accessible? And this is the idea, of Weeve. We empower new economies, economies of things. We envision that things, not human beings, things participate in economies, so-called machine-to-machine economies, and they make their digital assets, accessible through concepts known as marketplaces. They make the data accessible, tradable, and other devices or other consumers they simply buy that data. It's a simple economic flow of supply, demand, agreeing on a price, and this gives rise to a lot of new economies. And that's always something very powerful, something magical if two paradigms somehow fuse and create something new. And just in order to give you some concrete numbers, there are a lot of studies, a lot of forecasts. So, for example, at 2019, we expect that there is like 35 trillion gigabytes of data available. So, think about a gigabyte is like what fits on one USB stick. Yeah. So, 35 trillion USB sticks full of data, are out there next year. And some surveys say that 1/3 of that data has some kind of economic value. Yeah? And now let's do some kind of math. So now let's assume you only take like 0.1% of that 35 trillion data, and you try to sell it, for a really, really, really small price, like 0.05 cent, which is the price for the USB stick. Then you would get just some kind of mild revenue of 8.6 million euros. But that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning, because surveys, are clearly, saying that, the amount of data which, will be brought up, in particular by IoT, is going to be massive. Yeah. So in 2023, we expect that there's going to be like 125 trillion gigabyte of data. So trillions, this is a number with a lot of zeros. So, it's really, really, a lot of data. And almost, 41% of that has an economic use. So there are people interested in that data. They're willing to pay for that. And we would do that math again. Then you would see that, the revenue which, this data, allows you to make, is gigantic. Yeah. So, long story short, told short, data, when it, is made, or transformed into a digital asset, has tremendous value. But, and now here comes the cryptography into the game. So there are still challenges in order to make that revenue somehow real. A lot of technological challenges. Also the technological challenges we face at Weeve. Namely, how can we make sure that the data you want to make tradable, has the value you would like to have. So for example, this is an USB stick. Yeah. And I would claim here is like 1 gigabyte of data, data on. And I would like to have from you $50 for that. Who is willing, to pay $50 for that USB stick? Ah, exactly.
1 Bitcoin on it, right?
Maybe, maybe, but maybe it's just the collection of, say, my crypto.
It's signed by.
Kitty.
It's your sign. Crypto Kitty could be worth a lot.
Yeah,
I
could be.
it.
Yeah. So you see, we have like one fundamental problem, right? Here is just a sequence, of bits, and I'm claiming that I want money from you, and maybe a lot, or maybe it's a great deal for you. Maybe you're lucky, and the data here is like worth millions. Think about the data that Edward Snowden came up.
Maybe just because I bought it at this conference, I can say it's worth a whole lot.
Yep. And this is exactly a fundamental problem which we face when we're interested in building. Now let's see. Building economies of things. How can we assure that the data an IoT device, claims to have, has exactly this value? So how can we truthfully attest the value of the data when it comes from a machine? Because we know that machines, are, just machines, right? So they are programmed by humans. Humans make mistakes. Then machines are, subject to attacks. There's that, whole, cyber crime going on, right? And it's somehow, somehow a real problem how to make sure that this device, if it says, please give me like 1 cent for this data, it's really worth that money. Even though it's, at a low basis of 1 cent. And so when you look more detailed, what's happening, you can map, the whole process of, harvesting data and making it somehow commercially attractive, to a standard economic flow. For example, if you would like to sell, some kind of table. So normally it starts with harvesting data, with harvesting the resource, like the wood. Then you somehow process the wood into, say, a table. Then you transport the table to, say, a storage locker or a store. And people then, once they have a table in front of them, somehow first of all check the table, right? So this is exactly what you would do with a USB stick, right? Mm-hmm. So you would have a look what kind of data is there, maybe a virus. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're lucky and it's like a great Bitcoin account, right? Mm-hmm. Same happens with a table. So you check the quality. You, for example, would like to know, okay, what kind of wood is that? Is that high quality wood? Because it's from Indonesia or from any special country. Then you check who was the manufacturer. So did he do a great job? Is the table in a high quality. In a similar situation we are when we're gonna map this process to the, say, machine world, where IoT devices or any computing devices want to offer some kind of digital asset. So normally the way it goes, we start with some kind of hardware. There's a sensor equipped with. This sensor measures the data, then this data is processed, normally by the operating system running on that IoT device. There are some apps going on. Then at some point this data is transported, for example, to a data hub or to the blockchain. Yeah, and at some point this data has to be attested. Normally the way it happens is that you write some kind of smart contract, and that smart contract says something about the origin and the quality of the data. And this way we map the old school, the non-digital economic flow into an IoT environment. But the fundamental problem still remains, right? So the table, is something I can check. I can touch it. I can look around. But if I have a kind of piece of data, it's somehow hard to do that. And this is exactly where we at Weeve, started, to work on. So Weeve is a technology company, so with, a lot of influence from academic research. That's why, the professor hat, I'm wearing off. And we tried to come up with some kind of security solution, how to make sure that when an IoT device or any computing device claims, I have that piece of data, then you get some kind of certificate. And this certificate is some kind of cryptographic proof that says, okay, this is that data that you generated at that time, and this is exactly what it claims to be, and no one has manipulated this data. And this is what we call the testimony. And around the testimony, so in order to make the testimony work, so that kind of quality certificate for digital data, so we built a lot of other technology around, simply because a lot of processes are involved in making sure that whenever an IoT device claims it has this data, it is also somehow securely transported to the blockchain. So we came up with a huge technology stack, building on some kind of ARM trust technology. And here's an example, a more techie example, how the technology looks like. So we are using, very strong isolation mechanisms in order to make sure that, even when the device is corrupted, it's going to be hard for an adversary, to do the manipulation. So be it like, flipping the sensor measurement, be it that he gets access to some kind of cryptographic key material, yeah. So so that's the magic behind our technology, which we call, by the way, the Weeve OS. So it's like an IoT blockchain operating system with the highest security guarantees you can get these days. And the bottom line of this concept is that it allows us to separate the execution of say the cryptography and the rest of the operating system. So we built a lot of features, most notably a trusted wallet, such that an IoT device can also do automatic payments. Yeah, so it's like we built a safe into an IoT devices in order to make sure that even the crypto material, for example, like the Bitcoin keys or the Ethereum keys, will not get stolen. The attestation, I mentioned, the technology to make sure that whenever a device harvests some data, we get some kind of certificate that it's really the data we're looking for, and also some kind of neat high throughput mechanism in order to transfer the data. But that's just a stepping stone. A stepping stone, is to make sure that, okay, when an IoT device does something, we can really harvest this digital asset and transport it to the blockchain. But that's just the beginning. So, as I mentioned, we're interested in empowering an economy of things, which means that we're interested in marketplaces. We want that IoT devices get together, where they ask for supply and demand. And that's why we came up with the Weeve platform, and the Weeve platform is nothing else than economy of things as a service. So we want to make it companies and even individuals easy to just create their own marketplaces, and thus to make the step towards harvesting and commercialization of the most important digital asset as easy as possible. Just as a summary, so for people who are interested in understanding how do we do money, so with that business model, of course, the operating system is going to be for free, because we want that the community, not only Weeve, but this is like a Swiss Army knife. It's really a general purpose operating system for IoT devices connecting to the blockchain. We want that the community, contributes to this operating system and makes it even stronger, better. Yeah. But at the other side, where the marketplaces come into the game, we're interested in a classy premium model, where we just offer marketplaces as a service. Good. As a summary, where are we standing? So the company has been founded roughly a year ago. We've been very, very productive. Produced a lot of patents. I mean, though it's a startup, we are really into intellectual property. We're really interested in producing innovation. We filled 2 patents. For this year, we plan at least 2 to 3 additional patents to just, flesh out, the whole, Weeve platform idea. We already released, the first version of the Weeve operating system on GitHub, so it's free for everybody who's interested, in using that. And soon, we're gonna start with our token sale. Okay, I'm running out of time, so sorry for that. So, team is growing continuously. So, if you guys are interested in understanding better how you can do, with blockchain money, talk to me. I'm gonna be available after. Thank you.